Welcome to Titan HST's Business Continuity Today, hosted by Todd DeVoe, where planning meets reality.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are at in this fine land. Excuse me. I'm Todd DeVoe. I'm the host of Business Continuity Today, Director of Emergency Management at Titan HST, and I also teach at the post-secondary level. And learning and sharing things I learned is one of those things that's kind of a passion for me. And, we've been looking at things over the last, I've been looking at things over the last year or two. And as you've heard before, that Mr. Colburn, the guy behind the scenes here, will always say this line of, if it's not measurable, is it worth doing? And that really has resonated with me for a little bit, because one of the things that I do on the education side is I go through and I mentor or advise, I should say, students who are going through their thesis process. And of course, through that, we're measuring all sorts of stuff, right? And they are doing original research in some cases. And one of the things I was taking a look at is, how do we measure effective business continuity and emergency management programs? Now, we measure response, right? We measure response very well. So when the crisis occurs, we have a KPI, key performance indicator. We have a KPI for how quick fire trucks and police cars get out the door and get on scene. We have measurements for, on the computer side of things, when you talk about disaster recovery, which is a little bit different, but I'm going to touch upon it right here today, about how effective the program is how long did it take for them to get it back up and running, what are they using for backups. There's all sorts of stuff when it comes to the IT side. But when it comes to community preparedness programs, right? And we just came off of National Preparedness Month of September. And during that time, lots of flyers went out, I'm sure. I know I've seen some video programs that went out for reminding people to sign up for alert systems, and, how to have a kit and how to make a plan and those programs. But how do we know those programs are effective? What are we using as a measurement tool? And I don't think we're doing a good job at measuring how effective these programs are. Now, we've done some surveys in the past, and we looked at who's prepared in the county-wide, and it was okay, but the questions were okay. They weren't great. Some of them were kind of leading, and nobody wants to be the person who says that they're not prepared at all, I think. What I mean by that is, you go, oh, do you have your 72-hour kit? And oh, yeah, I got my 72-hour kit. But we didn't ask the follow-up question of, what does it mean to have a 72-hour kit? So, or what's inside of that type of stuff. When we look at effective programs when it comes to organizations, right? We're coming into the Great Shakeout that is coming up in a week or two. It's 2 weeks, right? And so, how effective is that program? Are people actually participating? Do we know how many people in the office are duck covering and holding on when we put that message out, right? If they're remote, it's even harder to measure, right? Because we are asking people to self-report that they're participating in the duck cover and hold on exercise. Are they doing it at home? It's hard enough to get people to participate in the program in the office at times. How do we get them to participate when they're at home without the incentives or the positive peer pressure of seeing the rest of their peers participate in that drill, right? Does that drill at the end of the day change people's attitudes towards earthquake preparedness? Now, I think those that participate in the drill for sure have a greater understanding of what to do during the earthquake. I've shared a story with my son, right, when he was younger, when we had the earthquake, because he went through it in school. So, how do we what indicators should we add? And I'm going to ask this question. I'd love to see it in the comments below. What indicators do we have, right, that show that these programs are effective? Now, let's bring that back from the community into the business, into the organization, right? So when you have support from above, right, from your CEO, from your C-suite, right, and they are participating in these exercises and these programs, in the drills, in the meetings, um, that's an indicator that there's support there, right? And then I we wait until we have an actual event. Go back to Morgan Stanley, right? As I know that's the example that we use a lot on somebody who had an effective program. But we don't want the key performance indicator. We don't want the indicator to see if our program is effective on game day, right? We should practice as we as if it's a real game, as if it's a real thing happening, right? When we do have evacuation drills, and we do have our exercises, our tabletops that we have should be a real deep conversation, right? Again, how do we measure that though, right? When we have this conversation, how do we measure the effectiveness of what is happening? I think we need to do a lot of work in this field in sitting down and looking at what our key performance indicators are. Now, it's different for each organization. I understand that. But we need to have a little bit more research done into how effective programs are, whether it's at the academic level, whether it's in the individual businesses that are having that research done for themselves. Like I said, when I was looking up ideas for this show today, all right, I found a lot of KPIs, a lot of measurement when it came to the actual physical response. And I found a lot of measurement when it came to the IT side of crisis response, but I didn't find a lot of measurement and good programs I didn't find zero, actually. I say a lot. There might be some out there, and if there are, please correct me and send that to me. Um, on how effective programs are when it comes to our business continuity programs in the offices and in business and emergency management programs in the community. We see K through 12 that are adding emergency management and business continuity programs, continuity of operations programs, throughout schools. We saw how ineffective their planning was, right, when COVID hit, because it took them forever to get up and, no, I should say forever, very hyperbole term, I understand. It took them a while to get up and running for the response, if you will, for the teachers to be able to keep teaching programs, whether it was through Zoom or using Canvas or other learning management systems, right? Why wasn't there those systems in place ready to go in case of the disaster? I can tell you, in the case of the school that I worked for at that time, before COVID hit, and I left prior to COVID hitting, one of the things I asked for and I talked about with the C-suite, if you will, right, with the vice president of instruction and the president of the college, was saying, hey, get every program up in the learning management system, even if it's not ready, even if they're not using it to teach, even if it's an in-person class, right, on the ground class, as they call it in higher education. The pushback I got was from the vice president of instruction saying, hey, there's some older instructors, they don't want to be online. And I told her, I said, well, and I was thinking, to be honest with you, either wildland fire or earthquake. That's where my head was. I wasn't thinking pandemic. This is in 2019 it was July and August of 2019 when we're having these conversations. And I said, hey, have the programs ready to go. So if something occurs, you can continue giving education programs and teaching programs over online until you're back in school. She looked at me, she said she doesn't see a scenario where they would be out of class more than a week. And that I was disagreed with her then, because if you had a building that burned down or something like that, right? And one of the other business continuity programs that we're talking about, continuum of operations programs that we had going on, the short-sightedness of that perplexed me. And then I left in September of 2019, and then December of 2019, that's when COVID broke. Yeah, so I think one of the problems that we have are not having the KPI, being able to key performance indicators, and we do not have data to back up what we know is correct. Right? I think if I had the data to back up what I knew was correct, we would have had a different scenario, and then the school wouldn't have been behind the 8 ball when it came to setting up programs for the students after COVID became a thing. So my challenge to you today is look at your programs and see areas that you can measure. And let's start measuring those those areas, putting data behind it, and then being able to share that data with those that are in charge. So when we start looking at programs, we can say these are effective because of this. That's quantitative. Let's have a quantitative backing of that instead of qualitative, which we've done for the most time. How do we measure how effective our programs truly are? That's the challenge. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for spending time with me this morning. It's always great to have you here. I don't know why I'm coughing this morning. It's always great to have you here. Hey, and until next time, please check out Titan HST at titanhst.com and see how we can actually help you measure and be part of your program. It would be great to partner with you. So next time, stay safe, stay hydrated.